Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. It is episode 142, and it's going to be part 4 of our series about Accuquilt, and it's May the 24th, 2014, and I guess all the Americans out there, you're getting ready for a long weekend. We had ours last weekend. Now you guys have yours. So before we get into the main event today, let's talk about what we've been working on. I'll go first because Walter probably hasn't got anything to show you at all. So this is the Churchill block, actually. It is a quilt made with 9 Churchill blocks. That's the sew along that Stephanie and I have been doing for the last few weeks. We still have a couple of more sessions to be posted on that, but I went ahead and got my quilt top done. And yeah, so that's what it looks like. It hasn't been quilted yet. It hasn't been bound. Maybe next week that'll happen. And one that I've had sitting around waiting for Lucy to get her act together is this one, the Diamond Trip. Now, I've shown this to you before. It was quilted back, whoa, months ago, because I had this sitting there waiting to be done on Lucy before we went to Australia. But I finally did it on Lucy. It's all quilted up now. It is straight at the top. It's the way I put it on the carpet. So don't look at that and think, oh, you got a wavy line. No, I don't. It's perfectly straight. It's just that carpet that things go on there. It's the only place I've got big enough to really take a picture of my quilt. It has a tendency to bunch up no matter what you do. And so it makes my quilt bunch up a little bit. But this is a heavy quilt. It's a fairly good size. I don't know what it is, but it's a good size quilt. It's made from jelly rolls, or a jelly roll, and it was a free pattern, I think, from Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics called Diamond Trip, but I doubled the batting in this one. Reason being is I could, because I was too lazy to take the 2 layers. It comes on the roll, doubled over, and it was just the right size if I didn't undo it, and when you undo it, it's a bit of a pain in the butt for it. So I thought, well, let's just double bat it. God, this thing's heavy. You wouldn't think. It's like a weighted blanket. But anyways, it is done. I'm happy with it. It's on the pile. And Walter, what have you been working on? What do you got planned for tomorrow? Because Walter's going to an in-person sew day.
Yeah, well, I was going to maybe try and finish my shirt and or finish a bag that I'm sort of just getting started on.
Oh, just getting started on.
For Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh.
Bags don't usually take me too long.
Oh, yeah, this is the thing you're given as a gift to the retirement.
If I get it done, yeah.
To the retiring
if not,
person.
I'm not giving it.
Yeah. Okay. Last minute gifts.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it for like 3 weeks. So
yeah, Walter doesn't rush into these things too quickly with it. So, and the shirt he's working on is mine. Get on with it. The summer won't last forever. Okay. Anyways, announcements. We have announcements. Yes, Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen. Wednesdays always start at 9 a.m. You know the drill. Links in the show notes. It's a Zoom. Go for it. If you're new, you're welcome to come. No problem. If you've never been to one, don't worry. We only bite if you want us to. Table-tastic 2 sew along. That's with the Churchill block that I just mentioned. Session 3 is already up. It went up yesterday on Thursday. Session 4 will go up next Thursday. And then after session 4, there's only one more session, and that's putting the whole block together. And I'll be glad when this sew along is done. It seems like this one's been going on forever. Okay, pop-up sew day tomorrow, Saturday, May the 25th. I know it's a long weekend for many of you Americans, so you may have other plans. But if you don't, come join the pop-up sew day. I sent out a reminder this morning to everybody on my mailing list. I sent it out on Monday as well. It's got the link, the Zoom link. But the Zoom link is also in the show notes below this today, and it's in the show notes for my vlog this week and the Idiot Quilter this week as well. So all are welcome. Come for whatever, for any length of time that you want to come. You don't have to come at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's what time I'm going to start letting people in. And that's Eastern time. And we'll run until about 5. Walter, of course, will be at his in-person sewing day. So you will not, this is the only thing you're going to get to see of Walter. And I know his fan club are upset about that they're not going to see you tomorrow at the pop-up sew day. They're crying in their beer right now as we speak. Everything. So they may revolt because of that. All right, so that's announcements. So let's move into oh yeah, before I do that, we just got back from a big sale at Ultimate Sewing. They have a big 2 day sale, 20% off everything in the store. They had one of the representatives from Janome there, Michael Smith. You may have seen him on YouTube. He's the Canadian Education Coordinator. I'm not sure what his total title is, but for Canada. And he was there talking about all the Janome machines and things like that. We spoke to Michael for a little bit. We kind of met him. We've met him several times in the past before as well. And yep, so it was a big event. It was busy, very busy. And between the two of us, we dropped about $800, I think. So we paid everybody's wages for today. And I'm going to show what I got, but not today. I will show that next week on Idiot Quilter. Okay, so anything else you'd like to add? Walter bought a lot of fabric. And he didn't buy fabric. What are you going to do with that
Not
fabric?
for shirts.
Well, what's it
Well,
for?
it's for other stuff.
Okay. Like bags?
Some bags. I want to do some other more embroidery stuff and stuff like
okay.
that. So
Like bags?
maybe bags or different bags. I want to try a couple of those. I'm not sure what is that. Those like that one with the beach on it and stuff like that.
Oh, in the hoop bags.
Yeah.
Do them in the hoop. Ooh, exciting. Okay. So let's get on with today's topic. Today's topic is cutting with the Accuquilt. And this is basically, I mean, it's not hard to cut your fabric with an Accuquilt, okay? It's pretty easy right out of the box. You don't need a lot of instructions, but there are a couple of little tricks and tips you should know about. So we're going to switch over to the Accuquilt machine and talk about these things now.
Okay. Go ahead.
We're having little technical difficulties because Walter doesn't know what he's doing with the camera because he's an idiot. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to cut the proper way, the way Accuquilt suggests you cut. Do I follow these rules all the time? Yeah, if I think about it. But it does help to make good, clean cuts. But right now you'll notice something. This is the machine we're using today. This is not my Go Big, the electric machine. This is just the Go. As you can see, it's manual. It has a crank. Now you're going to say, but wait, you have the electric. Yes, I do. Why am I not using the electric? We will tell you about that a little bit later on. So for this demo today, we're using the manual machine. So let's talk about how they design their dies. You'll notice this die has letters on it. Not all the dies you buy from Accuquilt will have a letter system on it. They only started doing this recently, printing these for each piece. Especially handy when you're doing something like this die, because this is a bob. This is a
Block on board.
That's it. Block on board. Not boyfriend. Never mind. That means something else altogether different. Okay, so they've started doing this now, and it helps to keeping your pieces straight. So when you cut your pieces out, I usually have a sticky pad beside me, and I put like A, B, C, A, R. I'll tell you why this one says AR and not D in a second. And as soon as I cut the pieces, I lay them out and I pin the little sticky note onto my pile, and I know which piece goes where with that. Now, in the instructions that will come with the die, and usually you get very scant instructions, okay, with it, because they assume that you can figure it out. They will tell you what piece goes where and which. Now, this is a 100 star, and you're going to say, wait, there's only 4 pieces. That does not make a complete star. No, it doesn't. You have to cut multiple pieces. And your instructions will tell you how to do that, but it's easy to figure out when you lay everything out. Walter's making weird faces behind the camera, so I never know what that's supposed to mean. Anyways, so that's a nice feature, because they didn't used to do that, and that really does help keep your pieces straight. Now you're going to say, well, what's the AR mean? Aha. That is the same as an A piece, except it's flipped. Now, they're both the same shape, but one is for the right side of the star, one is for the left side of the star when you put it together. That is important when it comes to cutting your fabric. Because if you're using printed fabric, or you're using something that's not a batik, so you've got a right side and a wrong side, well, if you lay all of your fabric down here right side up, that piece won't work, because you'd have to turn it over to the wrong side when you've got them cut to make it fit, and you don't want that. So I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, because there are some pieces that are the same shape but cut in the opposite direction in order for it to fit. So that's why they're calling that the AR. It stands for the right hand side. This one, that they didn't put an L. I guess I assume that you will figure that out. So that's important. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about how to lay out your fabric and how, when you come to a piece like this, what you need to do if you're going to do multiple cuts.
Couldn't you get mixed up if you're using the batik?
No, because there isn't a right side or a wrong side. They're both the same shape.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, no.
Okay.
Okay. But that's other dyes. No, it won't, because you have a right side. Only,
all right.
You only have right sides on batik.
All right.
So, you don't want to avoid having to worry about the opposite sides. Do everything in batiks. It's easier. Okay, so that's how a basic die would look. Now, basic fabric placement. All right, I've got here some fabric on this die. I am going to be cutting this in a minute, but I want to explain something to you. You know that fabric usually comes, if it's on the bolt, you have a selvage. And that's the part that has the writing on it and everything like that. And it's usually the part we cut off and throw away, or save it and make a bag. Some people do that. They have more patience than I do. Accuquilt Quilt recommends that you take the edge that's the selvage and you put it along this edge. So the top edge away from your belly, okay, is the way to remember it. So your selvage would go up here. That means you're cutting on the straight of grain. The straight of grain runs parallel to the selvage. However, I have a couple of pieces of fabric here that don't have a selvage. How do I figure out which edge is the straight of grain? The selvage edge. Stretch it. Pull on it. If there's any stretch in it, see, it's very subtle. But see how much I can stretch that? This part, I can't stretch the same. Okay, there's devices talking to us right now. That's the straight of grain. That's the one you want to be along this edge, away from your belly. Now let me see this one. Yep, that's straight of grain right there. You can feel it. It's not as easy to show it on camera as it is to feel it. But if there's any give, that means that's not the straight of grain. If it doesn't have any give to it, it's the straight of grain. So that's the way you're supposed to place it. That'll keep your fabric from fraying a little bit. It depends on the fabric. Some fabrics, it doesn't matter what way you cut them, they're still going to fray. But that's what they recommend. I don't always do it. And sometimes on certain pieces, you can't. The way that it's laid out, you can't do it. You're going to get a bias cut. So you just have to be careful if that's the case. All right, so what do I have here? Another thing that they help you with. This, I just got this die. This is the 6.5 inch HST, large HST. You see how there's two pieces here? And I want to show you something else. If you look down here, there's little corners, little straight pieces. They don't come right out to a perfect triangle point on either end. So there's a little cutout at the end of the triangle. That's to help you with the sewing. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to make a half square triangle, and for the sake of this demo, I've got my two pieces. I've got straight of grain at the top, drop the other one, and of course to make a half square triangle you always put right sides together. And there you go. My fabric is bigger. Now some of you are going to get upset. Oh, so much waste. Well, for the sake of this demo, I just grabbed two layer cake pieces. They're 10 inches. I could have used something like, I could have used like 2 7-inch pieces. I'm not going to have a lot of extra left over from that. I don't worry about waste, but some people do. And if that's you, feel free to cut it down to the size that's just a little bigger than the lines on here. Okay, now you do need your plastic cutting mat. Just goes on it, so you make your sandwich. And since this is a manual one, I just put it in, crank it. These are not hard to crank. But if you do have arthritis, severe arthritis, you might, that's why the electric is an advantage. Okay, static builds up under these pads. Eleanor Burns has a method. I don't use her method. Her method is to put your hand on it and twist it a little bit. I saw another way to do it, and this was actually the way the ladies at Accuquilt, who have a YouTube channel, actual employees of Accuquilt, they do it. They rub it. They go like this. Give it a little rub all the way around, and then see, that's the waste we're talking about, okay? That may make some of you upset, but I'm not upset with it. And so I've got my 2 pieces cut. So there's 1, 2. Now, you'll notice when I took them off, I didn't peel them apart from each other. I don't have a half square triangle yet because I have to sew it, right? So normally we would draw a line down, the diagonal line, on our 2 pieces of fabric. We would sew a 1/4 of an inch to either side of that line. Then we'd open it up, press it, and then possibly have to trim it down to the size we want, because many times patterns will tell you to oversize the squares you're going to cut, so you have some to trim off. And then you have to cut off the dog ears, okay? Not in this case. Those 2 pieces are perfectly lined up. As long as I don't peel them apart, you leave them like that, you take them to your sewing machine, you will sew your 1/4 inch from that point right there, you'll line it up under it, and your 1/4 inch goes right down the side. Take it to your sewing machine and open it up, press it, you won't have any dog ears. So it's going to look, when you've sewn it, let me get this piece here.
So you won't have to trim any dog ears off.
You don't have to trim anything. This will come out perfect size that you want. So there you go. You see it's all sewn there. And I've already pressed it. When I press it, there's my half square triangle, no dog ears, and it's exactly the size that I want. And this is a 6.5 inch half square triangle. Okay? See how much faster that is and how much more accurate? And remember, I only cut 2 layers of fabric. I could cut with quilting cotton 6 layers. So I get 2 half square triangles out of 2 pieces of fabric. 6 pieces of fabric, I'm going to get 2, 4, 6 half square triangles out of it. Really fast, really quick. Even faster with the sewing, because I don't have to worry about lining them up because they already come off lined up, and I don't have dog ears to cut off. I just zip and away you go. Chain stitch these, because usually half square triangles are in almost every quilt you can think of, and you usually have to make a lot. So there, this is fast, accurate, easy to do. And that's all there is to that. Okay, so now let's talk about layers of fabric, all right? And this is where you can wreck your machine. First of all, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be cutting quilting cotton, okay? So your machine will handle up to 6 layers of quilting cotton. Do not go to 7. Do not go to 8, because you may be able to cut 8. Ask me how I know. I've done it, but I don't advise it. The reason is that puts more pressure on your rollers in here, and that can cause damage to the rollers. So you don't want to do that. Stick to 6. Now, if you're using thicker fabric, you can't cut as many layers. If you're using something like flannel or wool, you can probably only cut 4 layers. If you're cutting cork, okay, that, you could probably only cut 4. But if you're not sure, on Accuquilt's site, you can go to, and they have a fabric reference chart. You print it out, it's a PDF, it's pretty thick. But it will tell you how many layers you can cut, whether you need to fan fold it on whatever the block is. They have all of their dies here that will tell you how many you'll cut out, what the width of a strip of fabric you need to fit that die. It's all on here. It's actually a little bit overkill, but good chart to have.
Here, let me zoom in on that for a second. Okay. Let's see.
And it's called the Fabric Reference Chart. Yes, it's about 40 pages. I think, no, actually, I think it's 59 pages. So, you don't have to print it out. You can just read it off your computer. It's a PDF. But I have a link to this down in the show notes, so if you want to get a copy or go to the site for it yourself and maybe bookmark it, you can get it. It's very, very handy. Okay. Yeah, all right. Next thing I want to talk to you about, we already talked about sewing the pieces together and what that looks like, and that's why you have, like on this, you see the little corners, how they're cut off? That's what you match up. So if you had to put, let's say, the A onto the B or something, or, well, whatever ones they go together, when you put them here, you just need to line up the straight corners of your pieces, and away you go, and sew your 1/4 inch seam. Again, makes things a little faster and more accurate with that. Okay, and you don't need to do pinning. You can, if you want to, if you still don't feel secure, but you saw what I did. I picked that right up. There it is. Hasn't been sewn yet. I can take it over to the sewing machine, and away I go. Okay, now, one of the things that people want to know is how to convert a traditional pattern to Accuquilt. Well, it's really quite easy. First of all, when you're cutting up fabric, what are you cutting up? Rectangles, squares, and sometimes you cut the squares into triangles and strips. The odd circle. Who knows? That's easy. Well, if you need to cut 2.5 inch squares, that's easy. You can get one of the dies that is 2.5 inch squares. Probably has multiple ones actually on the die for it. Or if you have the 2.5 inch strip cutter, you cut a strip and then you just take it and you take your ruler then and you cut it into across the strip. Very easy to take most things that are in a quilt pattern and easily look at your collection of dies and decide which ones you've got and whether it is faster for you or not. But if you're not sure, you have another chart. And I use this chart all the time. That's why it's in the binder. It's big, but it is called the Go Cutting Equivalent Chart. And it has every die, every strip die, every block on board, everything in there. And so if I'm looking, say I want to cut, have a section on squares, and say I need a 2-inch square. It gives you the actual cut size and then the finished sewn size, because you lose a 1/2 inch, right? So I need to have, say, a finished 2-inch square. So I go down finished seam size, 2-inch. The actual die will cut it 2.5 inches. Which one do I need for that? Well, it tells me here. And it gives you a variety of ones to select from, because some of them might be in cubes, some of them might be standalone. So there's usually more than one of the dies that will cut it. So you just check that. They have them numbered. You look at your supplies, and if you've got that one, that's the one you use.
So that last part shows you which dies you might be able to use for that.
To cut them. Yeah. And it gets more complicated, like certain rectangles, even triangles, and things like that. So the more dies you have, the more you can use for a pattern that you're using. Now, when I write a pattern now, I am including in my pattern the dies in Accuquilt. If you want to do it, you do the traditional cutting way, or you can use the Accuquilt. Now, can you use the Accuquilt for every one of your shapes? No, there are some that you can't. One of the ones that I don't like is when they tell you, like I was just saying, a 2.5 inch square. If you didn't have the 2.5 inch square one, they would recommend using the 2.5 inch strip die, which are these longer ones over here. And so you cut a long strip out, then you take it and you subcut it to 2.5. Well, that's kind of like, I can do that faster with my Stripology ruler. I just lay it down and go zip, 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 and then turn it and go zip, 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 zip with it. So not always is the Accuquilt the best
option.
Yeah, that's the word I wanted. Option for it. But in most cases, yeah, you can use it. Again, it's a tool to make your life easier. If you're concerned about time, this might be the choice because you got to do something fast. If you have health problems, problems with your wrist, with your hands, arthritis, that kind of thing, this might be the option you want to use more often. If you aren't a competent ruler cutter, and let's face it, cutting with a ruler, it is tricky because some rulers don't have that stuff on the back to keep them from sliding, so they can slide. Even when I use my Stripology ruler, which is the one with the slits, this one, okay, these slits have a little bit of play to them, and they can bend a little bit if you're not careful. So that will give you maybe a little bit of a bow in your strip. Whereas with Accuquilt, you don't have to worry about that. So you have to assess for yourself your needs with this. Okay. So as I said, those two charts that I've shown you, they're in the show notes. They're linked there. They're free. You can download them anytime you want. Yeah, what else can I say about cutting with an Accuquilt? Ideally, the placement of your machine. I usually have my Go electric. It sits down here. There is an alcove underneath my table here. It fits in there very nicely. I have a power bar attached to the shelves below. When I want to use it, I just pull it up, plug it in, bang. This one sits over in another corner, but you see, it takes a minute to. Is it heavy? Yes. So if you don't have a lot of strength, you might want to have a place, if you can find a place in your sewing room, where you can have it laid out all the time, out of your way, if you have that luxury. I mean, if I had a spot, I would do that. Even though I have it down here, I would leave my Accuquilt sitting out there because I just grab my die, bang, there it is. But we don't all have that luxury. Okay. Anything else I can tell you about this? No, that's all there is to the cutting. It is very, very easy. I want to just tell you one more time. Do not cut more than 6 layers of quilting cotton. You're asking for trouble if you do that. The machine isn't built for that. Don't be in such a rush that you think, oh, I'll just slip another layer on, because you can have a problem. And even if it didn't wreck your machine, which it may not wreck your machine with that, it may not cut all the way through. That's the other problem. So when you pull all your layers off, think about it as when you use a rotary cutter and you're cutting several layers of fabric at once, and right at the very beginning, this is where it happens to me, I didn't press down hard enough when I went through, and I go to pull things apart, and I've got this much that didn't cut, and then you take a pair of scissors, and I don't care how careful you are, you're going to take a nick when you do that, and it just pisses you right off when you do something like that. Well, if you put on 8 layers of fabric on here, and you go to pull them off, like pulling Eleanor Burns and throw the scrap behind you, some of your pieces may still have one thread. That's all it takes. That's holding them together. So you've got to be careful about that. That can happen with under 6 layers too, if you've got something caught in your die holes. And we talked about using the pick for getting those kind of things out. But there's nothing more annoying. And there goes the time you've saved, because now you're trying to very carefully separate those pieces. So don't do more than 6 layers. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention too. When you get a piece like this, where you've got 2 pieces on the board, but one piece have to be cut with the right side of the fabric up, and then the other one needs to have the right side of the fabric down in order to get the flip, the horizontal flip in the lines. All you need to do with that is, if you want to do multiple layers, is fan fold your fabric, and then you'll get them the right way. So, fan folding back and forth, put them on, you'll get your pieces in one cut, all going the right direction. Okay, so what we're going to do now is there's a couple of other resources I want to talk about. So we're going to switch back over to the computer for that. Okay, so 2 other resources that you would probably find useful on the Accuquilt site, and this of course is for when you own an Accuquilt. Of course, it'd be useless to you without one. And that is, well, actually, not necessarily are these useless to you. They have patterns and they have books. Now, some things you pay for, some things are free. They've got a lot of freebie patterns. So I'm going to show you here. It's the Accuquilt site, and they have a section called Patterns. right here and pattern books. And they've got a section called free and then new, and then ones that are designed for the Go cubes. And quilt ones, home decor, apparel, and accessories. Apparel and accessories. I didn't notice that before. We may
Um,
come back to that.
unless they're saying like Accuquilt t-shirts.
Oh, maybe. Oh, maybe. Well, we'll see. But anyways, here's what a typical page looks like. Um, some of these have more than one pattern. For example, 72 block patterns booklet. These are blocks. If you're into sampler quilts, this would be great. This works with the Go 8-inch cube.
Well, isn't that also good if somebody was just looking at buying an
Yes.
Accuquilt? You could download this and it would show you all the different patterns you can make from the 8-inch cube.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Or a cube.
Yeah. And it's free. Okay. They're saying here it's like usually $19.99. I think that's a lie. This has always been free. Then they've got other patterns. They have a lot of freebies here. They do have some. These are all the free ones here. They've got a lot. And when you download the pattern, it's a PDF. It tells you exactly. Now, of course, it's geared towards you using the Accuquilt system, of course, for cutting the blocks. But because they tell you what the measurement is for the block or for the die you need, you can do it the traditional way too. Like if it's calling for 10 5-inch squares, well, you can cut 10 5-inch squares with your ruler system too. So, you know, it's not just, there might be some things here that you're interested in. But you see, there is a lot here, a lot. So pages and pages of them. So that's a good resource. Now let's just out of curiosity go over here to where I just noticed the one about apparel to see what they're talking about. Okay, stay down. I hate their interface. It does this all the time. Oh, come on. Okay, here we go. Apparel and accessories. I'm just curious what this is in this category because I've never looked in here. Okay. Party aprons. Okay, there's a pattern for that, and they're featuring the Accuquilt die for the pineapple. Simple zip bags. Carolina Moore. So, do they show you? She has a die that's for cutting the corners on bags. Yeah, see that these are the oops. Okay, move over. Go back. All right. Where'd it go? Damn magic mouse. Oh, they have a little video showing you how to make them. So they're featuring her particular die for the box corners and that kind of thing. And also I think they're making it with 8.5-inch, because it's just a little pouch, 8.5-inch squares, which you would cut with the die as well. Oh, why won't it do? It doesn't want to stay. This is a problem I have with their site all the time. Okay, let me go in here. Do they have it down in the left-hand corner? Oh, technique or occasion. Oh, so they organize them by that. They have shapes, designer, things like that. So anyways, they have lots of stuff. Like this is also like catch-all bag, whatever, a flag, stuff like that. So they've got actually a lot of ideas. The other resource that's good is this one. This is their books. Now, I have this book, the Go Outside the Box. In fact, I have a couple of them, and I've got this one. They actually were freebies that came with when Walter got me a
Yeah, they
big bunch
threw
of them.
those into the package when I ordered a bunch of stuff from them. It's from the American site. So if you live in the United States and you order directly from them, you may get some of these magazines thrown into your whatever you've ordered.
And they even have English paper piecing if you're into that, because there is a die. I actually have the die for cutting out the hexagons And the beauty of that die is it cuts out your fabric for it, and it cuts out your little paper forms that you wrap the fabric around when you're doing English paper piecing. So lots of resources here, and I've put the links to those resources. I believe I put them in the show notes. Yeah, I did, below too, so you can check that out as well. And also, if you're thinking about buying an Accuquilt system and you look at some of these books, if now these ones you pay for, but if you download some of those free patterns and that you like, you could see, what bang for my buck can I get, especially those ones that have the 72 blocks on that. Because I mean, you use a couple of the blocks just to make a whole quilt, like a couple of block designs, that is. So, that might be a way of thinking, well, is this for me? Okay, so that is what we want to talk about today. Next week, we're going to talk about, okay, so now you've got an Accuquilt machine or two, like me, and
where do you stick it?
Where do you stick it? What about your dies? How do you keep them organized? Well, they have a solution for that. And so we'll talk about that next week. We'll also talk about an app that will help keep you organized as well. And I just had a little problem with that app. Yeah, it wiped out
apparently, according to the online reviews, there's a lot of people that have had a lot of problems.
Okay, so anyways, maybe we won't be talking about. Maybe we'll talk about that app, but we may not. You'll download it at your own risk. Well, we'll see. It was a great idea while it worked. Okay, so that takes me to comments in the past week. There were 2 comments. These just reinforce what we've been saying about the Accuquilt system. If you're still sitting on the fence on whether or not you want to get one, here are from other people, in case you think we're biased. Remember, we're not paid by Accuquilt. Not at all. We get a diddly squat, nothing. They don't even know we're making this. This person wrote, thanks for your videos on Accuquilt. I'm learning to make the most of my go big and learning my way around the dies that are available. I don't have enough days left off this earth to complete all the project ideas. That's kind of a dark thought. By the way, I'm a lifelong seamstress, including garment making, tailoring, and home interior. I thought quilting was for people who didn't know how to sew. Boy, was I wrong. I'm totally addicted, enjoying it. Thanks again, Ruth. So basically, this is somebody talking about that did not come from a quilting background, came from a garment background too. Now, you can't buy dies that are going to help you cut out. They should have them though. But then again, there's so many sizes and variations. I guess you couldn't do that the same way. But wouldn't that be something? An Accuquilt system that cut out pieces to make dresses and shirts and pants.
Yeah, plus you'd have to have, like, you cut out one of these pieces, you'd have to have a
huge
die.
It would have to be like, 3 miles long. Another person wrote, I've been an Accuquilt owner user since it first came out. The glorified 9 patch went together with it without a hitch. I've made 2 queen size quilts. Same with Cleopatra fans. I can't say enough about this system, except when getting started, buying dies can be addictive. I agree with that comment. I just bought 2 new dies on the weekend because Kawartha Quilting was having a sale. And I have dies, as I've said before, that are still in their wrapper. I've never taken them out. Now, that brings me to what I mentioned before, why I was showing you the manual machine as opposed to my Go Electric. Because my Go Electric is busted. Not by anything I did. Now, if you've been watching the Idiot Quilter, us and So Chatty for a while, we have mentioned the problem we had with the power supply that plugs into the side of the Go. And that first of all, it is a manufacturer's design flaw, in my opinion. And that was that the little plug-in that goes onto a little pin on the inside, you've seen those kind of things before, they don't fit very well. In fact, the only way you get it in was you had to pretty much force it in. You had to do some wiggling. In the process of doing all of that, the little pin dropped off on the inside of the machine. So we had taken it to Kawartha Quilting.
Actually, the first time you had that happen, you took it to Kawartha Quilting and they exchanged
it for a brand new machine. At that point, though, I'd only had the machine for about a month or a couple of months. And so, Kawartha Quilting, as I've always said before, excellent customer service. They just swapped it out for a new machine and it was working fine and doing great. And then it happened again. Now, I was very, very careful with that. Zach from Kawartha Quilting opened up the machine and he fixed it. And he fixed it. He agreed too. This is a designer flaw. There isn't any support on the inside of the machine to hold that pin the way it is. So it's just a matter of time before it drops off. So he kind of rebuilt that section of it, did some epoxying, some soldering and whatnot, and that's a very solid piece, probably the most solid piece of the inside of that machine that there is. And it has been working for me fine since he made that repair. Pulled it out earlier this week, turned it on. Well, it didn't turn on. No power going into it. No light on. Nobody was home. And I went, well, what the hell's going on? I checked the brick, the power box. And yeah, there was a light on it showing that power was going through it. I checked the connections to it. I checked outlets.
I even checked the brick to see with a voltmeter
Yeah,
to make sure that it had power going through.
and there was power going through it. So we didn't know what's going on. So I, of course, went back to the original problem. No, it seemed like everything was still firmly attached in there and everything. And I did give it a little wiggle around. And no, nothing. Dead. So off we went to Kawartha Quilting, took it in, and Zach took it apart while we were there. He tried what we had already tried to, first of all, go for the thing that's the easiest to. I was hoping that he'd plug in a new brick into it and it would just start right up, because I know what he would have done. He would have just given me the brick, the better one. But that wasn't our luck this time. Zach said he thought maybe the solder points he had done came undone or something like that. Well, he looked inside it, and I was standing there when he was looking inside it, and he says, oh, they look like they're pretty solid. So he was playing around with it more again, and he was trying to figure this out. And I said to him, look, Zach, I know he's a busy guy, right? And it was very nice of him to look at this, because, you get another dealer and they'd say, oh, well, we'll just have to send it to Accuquilt and you're not going to see it for a year, kind of thing. Zach isn't like that. That's what I mean. Kawartha Quilting has excellent customer service. They go way beyond what most dealers would do. And so I said to him, look, Zach, I have the other machine, as he knows. I said, I'm not desperate. I'll leave it here. When you have a chance, you've got time, because he was working on, I think he was fixing a long arm too, same time. And, there's nothing worse than having somebody standing over your shoulder while you're trying to do something that you're not really sure what you're doing, kind of a thing. Not saying that Zach doesn't have a certain level of expertise, but, it makes you nervous. I don't like.
Or while he's diagnosing stuff.
Yeah, trying to diagnose it and everything. So I said, I'll just leave it. I said, I know you'll look after me. And he will. And he says, if he can't figure it out, it may have to go back to Accuquilt. I said, whatever. I have the other machine. But this is something that, and now I'm going to have people write to me and say, I have had an Accuquilt go big for years, never had a problem. And what do I say to that? And you should know me well enough now. Well, I go, la-di-da, good for you. That's great. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you're not having the problem. I am. And I don't abuse my machine.
Steve's very careful with stuff.
So, yeah. It is a design flaw in this machine. Will Accuquilt come right out and admit to that? I doubt it. I doubt it at all. So I am very thankful for Zach and for Kawartha Quilting, because I know that it's in good hands right now, and the problem will be eventually resolved. The only thing I question is, how long will it stay resolved again? Because this is starting to annoy me, and it strongly suggests, and although we have been singing the praises of the Accuquilt, and I still stand by what I have said about it, this is something that has me a little concerned about it. And it's the electric machine. So, yeah. But
these machines are not cheap.
No.
And you want a quality product when you purchase something that's expensive.
And you're expecting that you are. Once you pay this kind of like over $800 for this machine Canadian, you're expecting quality out of it all. So, we'll see. We're leaving it at that for now. We'll see what Zach comes up with and whatnot. If I have this problem again, I will contact Accuquilt directly. They're in Oregon, I think.
No, they're in
someplace out west, isn't it? In the States.
Well,
whatever. There's someplace out there. I will hunt them down.
No, Oregon's on the west. They're in the middle.
Oh,
Nebraska.
oh, Nebraska. Oh, okay.
Omaha, I think.
Omaha. Okay.
No, maybe not. I think it's
Well,
Omaha, but Nebraska, but I'm not sure.
all right, whatever. So yeah, like I will not be done with them one way or the other because you know me, squeaky wheel. In this case, it's more than squeaky. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll keep you appraised of the situation. All right. So, just one last thing, which has nothing to do with Accuquilt, but goes back to our videos about machine embroidery with 550E. When we were in Ultimate Sewing today, we ran into a lady who was having some problems with her 550E. She hasn't had it very long, and she was getting very frustrated because her thread was shredding, and she was using the same thread as I use. She was using Floriani, and the Janome representative was in the store, and he recommended that she uses Janome purple needles. We say no. We are not Janome dealers, but we have never had good luck with Janome needles. Do not like them on any of our machines. Yes, I know some of you out there with Janomes are going to say, that's all I ever use. The blue tip, the purple tip, the rainbow colored, I don't know. All of that, I've never had a problem. And again, I say, good for you. Okay?
We've experienced problems with the purple needles for
Yep.
the embroidery machine.
Do not like them.
And I also find they don't last very long.
No, they don't. Now, those needles are probably made by Oregon, and Oregon is a major manufacturer of many brands of needles. They have the other companies' names on them, and they've been around for many, many, many years and have a good reputation. But for some reason, we have never had great luck with Janome needles, especially the purple tipped ones. What I use on my machine, and I guess you use the same, as I use, now I'm not sure if you can buy them anymore, but they had a brand that was made by Schmitz, but they were called Floriani embroidery needles, chrome. They were called chrome.
Yeah, but they were made by Schmitz, so I
Yeah.
imagine Schmitz embroidery needles are pretty much
Yeah.
the same product.
And I have used I have used Schmitz embroidery needles. I use a 9014 for most things that I do. That works well. So there's several different reasons we went through why her thread might have shredded.
But then later on when we were heading home.
Yeah, but you're going to jump ahead of this.
All right.
We recommended that she use with the needles we just said and make sure she was using 9014. Now she said she was using 9014s. You can use
8012s.
8012s as well in the 550E. But you know, just in general, oftentimes your thread will shred if you're using too thick of a thread through too small of a hole in your needle. Okay, that can happen. The other thing that can happen, we said to her, well, when was the last time you changed your needle? Sometimes you'll have a burr that you can't see on your needle eye, and that will shred
it. It can happen on a brand new needle.
Yeah, and it can happen on a brand new needle.
Not very often, but it can.
So if your thread is shredding, that's one thing to check. Another thing to check is your threading of the machine. You've heard us talk about that. And we went over it with her. There was a machine right there and I said, she's got a thread stand. So I said, you see the little silver hooky thing down on the top of it? Are you putting your thread through that first before you go through the rest of it? She says, yes. And I said, are you threading it right on the bracket at the top? Because you have to loop that around and through. And she says, yes. But then she told us when she pulled her thread out, it was all caught up in her take-up lever, and it was all like a coil. And I have had that happen too. And the thing with Floriani thread, and possibly with other threads, it is 2-ply. It is wrapped around. And if you had a burr on your needle, or if it got caught on your spool as it's coming off the spool thing or whatever and put tension on it, one of those strands could snap and you wouldn't even notice it because at the speed that an embroidery machine goes at, you wouldn't even see that. And what happens is that acts like a little spring action and it bounces up into where the lever is, where the take-up lever is. And then,
and you have to make sure that your thread is coming off the cone easily.
Yeah.
Like I've had it where the thread occasionally will trap underneath the cone.
Yeah, I've had that.
And it yanks on the thread and it may break because of that.
Yeah. So there are several factors there. Because she was saying, now that was when we got interrupted and I didn't ask her about this. She said she had to cut her thread off at an angle and then thread it into the needle. I thought, are you not using your automatic threader? Because you don't have to cut off the end of the thread if you're using the automatic threader because you pull so much through past the end of the thread. Now, if she had said she's not using it because it's busted, that sets up a warning sign. It means that she's using the wrong size needle and the wrong size for thread combination because it's very limited and
She
it
said
tells you that in the manual.
something else that I didn't really think about until after we were coming home is that she said the needle or the thread cutter was leaving an uneven end on her thread as well. And isn't the thread cutter mostly cutting the bobbin thread?
Yeah, it's really just cutting the bobbin thread.
Yeah, well, what kind of thread was she using?
And this is what we didn't tell her about. We didn't think about it until on the way home, and that's why we're saying it here. Because if she happens to see this, the lady in on Saturday at Ultimate Sewing that we're talking about, the 550E.
No, it's Friday. This is Friday.
Oh, is this Friday? Okay, Friday. Yeah, May the 20. What's today? May the 24th. Okay. Anyways, we thought about this on the way home. Bobbin thread. If she was winding her own bobbins and using Floriani thread in her bobbin, she could have problems because we have. We have never been successful in winding our own bobbins using Floriani thread. We use, as you've heard us say many times before, because we sing the praise of this, we use pre-wound bobbins.
Yeah, and even if you weren't using pre-wound bobbins and you were winding your own, you really should be using like a lightweight thread, like a 60 weight.
And not necessarily using a Floriani thread, using just a
just a regular
60 weight thread. Yeah. Pre-round bobbins work the best we have found, and you get them inexpensively. You get 144 in a box for $25 from monfil.ca, monfil.ca, Canadian company in Quebec. But that's what we use for everything, and never have a problem like that. So that's another thing to look at. But I guess the bottom line, what made us both go like suddenly make our eyes wide open, went, do not use the Janome purple dip needles. And of course, the person from Janome that was there was recommending them. He kind of has to recommend them because he is a Janome representative. But they're crap. Now, I know some of you, again.
Yeah, I know lots of people
very
that swear by them, but
we don't.
I just find, especially if you do a lot of embroidery or something like that, or if you do a lot of embroidery that has a lot of threads on like intense patterns, I have found that those needles will start causing me trouble
because they bend easier.
Yeah,
I think they bend easier with it. Of course, you can't see the bend. You know, you have to.
Really it's a minute bend, and
but it just you're dealing with a precision machine.
As soon as my thread starts shredding, the first thing I do is change the needle.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, there's the other way. Make sure your bobbin area is clean.
Right. Everything should be clean. Yeah.
As well with that. So, anyways, I hope that what we told her in the store helps her out. It's kind of sneaky because the Janome representative was getting a coffee or something, and so we said, no, don't buy those needles. But anyways, so yeah, okay. So we thought we'd put that in there and hope
it's not like the store's not getting a sale from needles. I mean, we were recommending her to buy needles, the Floriani needles or the Schmetz needles from the same store. So
yeah, so it's not, we're not taking a sale away from her. We're taking a sale away from the company Janome in that way. And I'm sure they can afford that. But of course, they're going to tell you all manufacturers sewing machines, their brands. Bernina would tell you use only Bernina this and that. Janome tells you only use Janome this and that. Baby Lock says only use Baby Lock this and that. You know, that's how it works in the business. So again, it's our opinion. Based on our experience, it's working for us. So there you go. Okay, so that's it for us this week. I thought this one was going to be short. It wasn't, but that's okay. And I hope you have a good, if you're going for a long weekend this weekend. I hope you have a nice weekend and everything. Pop up So Day tomorrow for those of you that are around, and we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.